Hello everyone, and today we're going to tell you about the 2019 series Carnival Row. It all begins with a scene in the forest where fairies are trying to escape from aggressively hostile soldiers. One of the fairies stumbles, almost becoming a meal for a monster, but Vignette helps her fellow fairy, and even then, only she manages to survive the chase by hiding on a ship. At first, the captain is completely against having such a passenger. But as soon as they come under fire, he changes his mind. On her way to a better world, Vignette looks at a photograph of a certain man. One of the girls notes that he is wearing a Berg soldier's uniform, and in fact, the ship is heading there. Vignette adds that he is no longer alive when suddenly cracks appear in the ship. At this time, the man from the photograph arrives in Berg. He is actually alive, and his name is Philo. In this city, people coexist with all sorts of magical creatures, from fairies to horned beasts. As an inspector, he is assigned the case of a surviving girl. The so-called invisible Jack prefers to choose his victims from among the Fae, and Philo promises to catch this scoundrel. But to do that, he needs information. The girl says that Jack usually attacks once every 3 weeks, and the last incident was exactly 3 weeks ago. She adds that Jack had a snake tattoo and sideburns could be seen on his face. He was also wearing a uniform, but she can't say who it belonged to. At this time, the survivors from the ship are washed ashore near the city, while the government is holding a meeting to determine what they should do about the non-human races. The Chancellor keeps mentioning how he has been pushing laws against such beings, but Laginberg quietly hints that he knows about the Chancellor's fondness for little fairies, which leads his wife, Piety, to ask him if it's true when he gets home. But the Chancellor denies everything. Meanwhile, their son Ioan was waiting in the hallway, who also loves visiting the fairy quarter, which is why Piety asks him not to get his father into trouble. A couple of hours later, out on the city streets, Tumalin spots Philon, who can't understand why the other victims flatly refuse to give their testimony. Tumalin explains that in the past, people in power oppressed the Frey. And even though Philon isn't like that, it's just hard for them to believe. Meanwhile, at the department, Vignetta is undergoing the standard interrogation procedure. Vignetta explains that when the ship went down, the crew didn't open the hold, but the officer makes it clear that there's nothing wrong with that, just standard cost saving. This ship belonged to Ezra, and since Vignetta didn't pay for her passage, she'll have to become his sister's maid. At their first meeting, Imogen gives her a brief introduction. When night falls, riots against magical beings break out in the city streets. Such gatherings are the perfect place to look for Jack. Remembering the tip that Jack was dressed in uniform, he asks Dombey to show his skin, but Dombey flatly refuses. Instead, he tries to understand why Philo is so fiercely supportive of the Fae, only to be told that during the war, they were excellent comrades. And then the sergeant starts spreading rumors that Philo hooked up with one of the Fae. Upon returning home, he was met with all sorts of conversation from the landlord. A new day begins. Fan puts a suit on Vignette that prevents her from using her wings. While cleaning, Vignette has a sudden idea and immediately pours out the perfume, which leads the girl to ask Vignette to go into town to buy new perfume. This is how she manages to find Tourmaline, with whom she started working together. But now Tourmaline works in all sorts of places. During their conversation, she notices that Vignette has a tail, which means she is a widow, and adds the news that Philo is alive and living in this city. He is already starting to have suspicions about the sergeant, which is why he demands surveillance be established. But the magistrate is against it, not believing such words. After leaving the office, one of the officers says that ships are still bringing more and more creatures, and Philo realizes that Jack is not a policeman, but a ship captain. That day, a wealthy man buys the house across from Imogen. Wanting to meet him, she goes downstairs, not suspecting that he is not human. Closer to night, Jonah comes to Tourmaline for various reasons, and after everything, he is kidnapped by a couple of men. In one of the pubs, Philo accidentally finds the person he needs and Jack makes a run for it. Philo gives the order to split up, driving Jack onto the roof of a building. The man says that his goal is to stop the influx of magical races. They all appear in a dark place, their god is about to awaken, and Jack jumps off the roof while Vignette uses a knife to remove the limiter, cuts her scythe, and flies off into the city. After finishing his work, Philo returns home, where his landlady is already waiting for him. But Philo has no time for this. This allows Vignette to press a blade to his throat. Philo explains that his death was a lie, only to keep her from getting hurt. Vignette is stunned by these words, since for the past 7 years she has been devastated, and then she simply leaves. Somewhere in the city, one of the Fae, while walking along the shore, finds a photograph of Philo, unaware that a certain monster is sitting nearby in the darkness. A new day begins. Freya has left this world. Philo, together with his assistant, comes to her residence. After inspecting the room, they find Roniano, a man who claims that the girl was his friend and that he only recently arrived in the city, adding that he worked with her in the music industry. Everyone adored her, but one day, she abruptly ended her career. One way or another, he becomes a suspect. Moving to the mansion, Afisa states that she saw Veniera flying off to the city, which is why she asks her not to tell anyone, and Afisa agrees. Meanwhile, the girl tries to deal with her new neighbor, since she can't live next to such a creature. The maid overhears this conversation, but says nothing. The disappearance of Iowan has also become known. The Chancellor says that they won't do anything. They just need to wait for a ransom demand. While walking in the park, the girl asks for her umbrella to be brought to her, but Venieta forgot it at home and is already running back to get it. And while she's gone, the girl asks passers-by to give her an umbrella, and only the new neighbor decides to help. And even though she doesn't like him, she still has to stand under his umbrella, while at the same time suggesting he should move out of her neighborhood. But the man makes it clear that he's not going anywhere, adding that she shouldn't look down on people like him. After all, the girl herself uses perfume with a hint of magical animal scent to help attract attention to herself. And the girl immediately leaves. As for Phylan, he's told that there won't be an examination of the girl, since they don't care about other races, so he has to bribe Schaffen. He explains that the girl is a little over 90 years old and her liver is missing, and the incision itself was very large, indicating the great strength of the attacker. Meanwhile, in the mansion, Ezra says that the debt can be repaid much faster, forcing Venieta to strike. A girl comes in because of the noise, and Ezra pretends that Venieta was trying to steal something, fully aware that she can never return to the house again. She asks her friend to give her a job, but Tourmaline doesn't want that kind of future for her, so she suggests joining the ranks of the Black Raven, who fight for the rights of people like them. A day later, the ransom still hasn't been paid. A woman brings Iofna, and according to her, she can predict the future. Fully aware that the Chancellor will be against it, she adds that she was the one who introduced them. Iofna says that their enemy wants to take the Chancellor's place, and the family decides that it was Lagenberg. Meanwhile, Vignette finds the Black Ravens, who are judging one of their own because she gave information to the police, which means the girl equates herself with humans. There is only one fate for such people, elimination. But Vignette is not afraid because she would never betray her own kind. Hearing these words, the leader gives her the task of stealing the flag right from under the police's nose. A new day begins. Phelan accidentally overhears a conversation about Vignette's debt and offers to pay it off himself. Ezra gives his approval, but before leaving, Phelan wants to understand why she decided to run away, since he is sure Vignette would never steal anything. And since Ezra froze at those words, Phelan fully understands the real reason. As soon as Phelan leaves, Ezra explains that their family is starting to have financial problems, and that's why he wants to launch a new ship. So they'll have to sell this house. Switching to Ioan, whose mother actually stole from him, Ayofe was deliberately giving tips about Langier. Towards evening, Emoji decides to write a letter to Grey. At the department, Mima asks to see the eliminated Freya, as her soul needs to be released. After the ritual, the girl says that Freya would light a candle every day, standing on the shore. During the ritual, she felt something dark. This is exactly what Jack was talking about, but their conversation is interrupted by Vignette, who is stealing the flag. Knowing where to find her, Fallon comes to the house where Vignette admits that she has joined the ranks of the Dark Ravens, and after a brief conversation, he lets her go. And with that, the first 2 episodes come to an end. If you want to see more, just let us know in the comments. We're interested to hear how you rate this series, or just recommend something interesting. We'll see you again very soon. Bye.